All right, hello everyone and welcome to today's program. My name is Greg Green. I'm chairman of the Manatee Chamber of Commerce's Legislative Committee, and as an aside, our committee starts developing our platform for the 2013 legislative year next week, so this is a great event to get the thought juices flowing. Before we begin, we are also honored to have several elected officials present, and I'd like to recognize them. Please hold your applause until they are introduced. State Representative Jim Boyd, County Commissioner Larry Bussell. I know I've seen Edie here. Okay, there's Larry. Okay, and Pam Nickel on behalf of State Representative Ray Pallon. Okay. Next, I would like to recognize our annual guest luncheon sponsors, Angela Wilson. Did I miss somebody, Jim? Okay, all right. Oh, there's the applause. I'm sorry. There you go. Thanks. I appreciate that. Next, I'd like to recognize our annual guest luncheon sponsors. Kaiser University, and is Angela Wilson here today representing them? Okay, and Mosaic. And even though they're not here, again, round of applause for our sponsors. All right. It's the Manatee Chamber's distinct honor to be the coordinator of today's luncheon. Although there have been a number of joint efforts from the various organizations partnering together, this is the first event where all 5 of these organizations have come together for one event. In addition to the Manatee Chamber, we've got the Gulf Coast Builders Exchange, the Home Builders Association of Manatee, Sarasota, the Lakewood Ranch Business Alliance, and last but certainly not least, our sister organization to the south, the Sarasota Chamber of Commerce, all working together and all taking part in today's program. Since all of our organizations are concerned about the business community, jobs, and the economy, who better than Chief Financial Officer and former President of the Senate, Jeff Atwater, to be our guest speaker here today. Florida is a unique state with the requirements to have an annual balanced budget developed every legislative session, and we look forward to Cabinet Member Atwater's words of wisdom.
Thanks for coming today. My name is Craig Soretta with the Lakewood Ranch Business Alliance. We are glad to have you here. Great event having all these organizations come together. I agree with your comments, Greg. We've got to do more of these programs, and it's beneficial to everybody in the entire community. So I've got a few announcements to give you. Get your pens ready because there's a lot of stuff coming up. You got 5 groups here, and all the groups are focused on business, on helping your businesses in one way or another. So think about, out of these announcements that we're going to do, what might be applicable for you, something that you might want to go attend and participate in that you were not familiar with or didn't know was going to be happening. The Manatee Chamber, Mr. Bob Bart's organization, Constitutional Amendments Breakfast. Now, this is a breakfast that's going to be a big deal. You'll notice outside, right outside the door, these blue flyers. Pick one up on your way out. It gives you a little bit on it. The speaker, one of the 2 speakers, will be Mr. Pat Neal. The other will be David Hart. It's going to be October 17th, right before the elections, focusing on the amendments that need to be voted on that will be good for business. Help people understand, help people to really know what's going on with the amendments so that right before the election you can go back out, talk to your friends, your neighbors, your employees, and possibly utilize that information to help make some momentum. So that's October 17th, Constitutional Amendments. Also from the Manatee Chamber, the 28th Annual Golf Outing and Golf Tournament is October 19th. 28 years, Bob. Have you played all 28 of those? All right, and your handicap's still the same as 28 years ago. Oh, man. They do a great golf outing. That will be at the Bradenton Country Club, I believe. And the Bradenton Country Club, if you have not played there, is a great place, a wonderful course. I played it for the first time about 6 months ago and really enjoyed it. So get out with the Manatee Chamber and participate. Sarasota Chamber, primetime event at Bentley's Hotel, September 19th. This is a networking and like a trade table. So there are tabletops, expo, lots of networking. Again, that's September 19th at Bentley's Hotel. Also coming up, they have a Salute to Business annual luncheon. This is going to honor firms that are really doing a great job at hiring and investing in our community. And I think that's a tremendous thing to honor for, especially in this economy. Let's pick out the businesses that are helping to make a difference in the job market and investing in the local market. That business luncheon will be at the Hyatt Hotel on October 22nd. And then also, Sarasota Chamber, in coordination with the Manatee Chamber, will be having a Chamber Expo 2012 at the Bradenton Convention Center on November 7th. All right, lots going on there. Home Builders Association, Mr. Alan Anderson that you met a little while ago that did the pledge, they have got their annual trade show September 11th coming up very quickly, also at the Bradenton Municipal Auditorium. Now that's open to anybody in the business. You don't have to be a member of the Home Builders Association. It's not open to the general public. This isn't one of those where you go and you buy new plants for your yard or something like that. This is a trade show for home builders, but anybody who's got a related business or an interest, you ought to go and meet the folks at the Builders Association and all of their members. The Gulf Coast Builders Exchange has got an August networking event coming up just next week, Thursday, August 30th, right here on the ranch at the Ranch Grill, which is a new restaurant out on State Road 70 right at Lorraine Road. Gulf Coast Builders Exchange does a great job of networking, a lot of people, so come meet some business people at that organization on August 30th, 5:30 to 7:30. And again, that's got a flyer outside. And then our organization, the Lakewood Ranch Business Alliance, we, in coordination, partnership with the Siesta Chamber of Commerce, will be doing our 4th annual East Meets West Chamber event. This will be on September 5th, Sarasota Municipal Auditorium. Great program. We try and bring together businesses from all over the region that may otherwise not have collaborated on something. We typically get about 700 people to attend this. So again, you have networking and you've got the tabletops, etc. So that's on September 5th, Sarasota Municipal. And also for the Business Alliance, we are currently taking nominations for businesses for our Sandy's Award, which is our annual event where you nominate the business of the year and the business that's the best corporate citizen, etc. So if you have anybody that you think is a great business either in Lakewood Ranch or that does business in Lakewood Ranch, we'd like your nominations and your input. And I see that I forgot something here. The Manatee Chamber of Commerce wanted me to promote their big outing to Scotland and Ireland. Hey, this is a great trip. You're going to hit a couple big, you're going to play golf at St. Andrews, I think, and a couple of the other golf courses, but it'll be a business trip. You're going to go with the business people from the community over to Scotland and Ireland, March 10th through 18th, and in the past reviews, I've never gone, but the past reviews of programs that they've done like this have been tremendous. So think about that as a big annual event next year. Lastly, I'll point out that for those of you that aren't familiar with these organizations, everybody's got materials out on the desks out there. So Gulf Coast Builders Exchange, Chambers have some of their materials. The Business Alliance has our newsletter. So if you aren't familiar with any of these groups, take a few minutes to grab some of that and take it home with you. Also, Florida's Bottom Line, Jeff Atwater's material is out there. So be sure to stop at the table on the way out. And we want to also remind you that during our presentation today, if you'd turn your cell phones off, we would really appreciate it. Just take 5 seconds right now, grab that cell phone, put it on silent or turn it all the way off so that we can move forward and have a great program. With that, I would like to ask Mr. Steve Cuellar from the Sarasota Chamber, President of the Sarasota Chamber, to come on up and introduce our speaker today. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. It's great to be here. Appreciate you all taking your time for an important topic and gathering on a Friday afternoon. It's my pleasure to introduce Chief Jeff Atwater. Excuse me. Jeff's a 5th generation Floridian. How many natives, how many born in Florida in the room? Not bad, pretty good. See, our groups bring out people with deep roots and strong commitment. Jeff was elected in November 2010 as Florida's Chief Financial Officer, CFO, and took office early January last year in 2011 and has already done great things. I'd like to mention a couple of things he works on and also point out that this is just one step in a long career of community and public service. His top priorities in his role now include fighting financial fraud, abuse, government waste, reducing regulatory burdens that stifle business growth, something we're very appreciative of, providing for transparency, creating conditions for economic development, and saving money, saving our precious taxpayer dollars. As CFO, Chief Atwater serves on the cabinet, so our state governmental structure in Florida has this interesting situation with the governor, General Pam Bondi, and Adam Putman with agriculture and so on. And this four-person cabinet is a really key group that makes a lot of decisions and leads the state year-round, and particularly even when the legislature is not in session. But speaking of the legislature, Chief Atwater began his public service as Vice Mayor of North Palm Beach, but gravitated to state-level leadership rather quickly, being elected to the House of Representatives in the year 2000, and then very quickly, 2 years later, to the Senate. He was such an efficient and effective and productive senator that he worked his way up in a rapid way and was president of the Senate. So his virtually decade in the Senate closed out in 2010 with being pretty much one of the top 2 or 3 most powerful people in the state of Florida. Somehow after his banking career, he's also been able to fit in community civic service, which we know so many of you do along with your business or governmental roles. He is a graduate of University of Florida, if anybody wants to do college rivalries, and has a beautiful wife and 4 children. So with that, Chief Atwater is going to update you with where we're at with finances and how our state finances and those going on beyond our state affect the economy. Please welcome Chief Jeff Atwater.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it very much. Thanks. Oh, that's great. Okay, thanks, guys. Thank you. Thank you, Pat. Thank you. Thank you, Steve. Okay. Glad we got that out of the way on the standing ovation. Thank you. Here's what I'd like to, this is what I really think is the most valuable part of these moments together is our question and answer time. So I'd like to cover some things that I believe are really important taking place in our state. And then be sure I leave enough time so the things that are in your mind, the things that you don't think that are going so well, you can get to the bottom and get an answer out of me on those matters. Let me say thank you again for the invitation to be with you all and an extraordinary constituencies who have come together who care deeply about the ongoing quality and sustainable quality of life here in our community that are co-sponsoring us all being together today. It's very impressive. Chief Financial Officer is probably the Rodney Dangerfield of offices. Nobody knows I exist. And so I'm so excited to be invited out like this. There are 4 members of the cabinet, which Steve said, our governor, our attorney general, and our agricultural commissioner. Most people do not know that we elect the chief financial officer. You did, or someone sitting next to you did elect me in 2010. And so I'm one of those 4 members that serves in that capacity. But let me just share what the job entails. It's a title that does not exist in the other 49 states. My colleagues in the other 49 states are known as state treasurer. And those state treasurers are responsible for the financials of the state. So I have the good fortune of serving in that capacity for you. All the auditing, all the counting, all the bill paying, the management of your state treasury, which is about $20 billion on any given evening. Those are the things you give me the privilege of overseeing, which takes a great deal of care to be sure all of that is done with the greatest deal of efficiency and effectiveness, because it is your money that has been extracted from your wallet or your business model for a greater public good. And that's how we look at that. Secondly, beyond that, of that role as state treasurer, the state constitution and the state statutes allow myself to do as your CFO would be in the insurance arena. My responsibility would be the licensing and regulation of all insurance and all insurance agents and agencies. So I'm always asking for feedback when people came in the door today. Are we right? Are we quick? Are we fast? Are we value added? That's our responsibility. If an insurance company trips and stumbles, it is my responsibility to try to rehabilitate it. I take it in, and or if we cannot succeed, it would be to liquidate that insurance company. It's also our responsibility to address all matters of insurance fraud. So we have 150 sworn law enforcement officers that are out, auto insurance fraud, all types of insurance fraud that we would work on. Also, I have the good fortune of being the risk manager for the state, so all state assets, cars, buildings, people, managing that risk. Have responsibility as your state fire marshal. So the licensing of all firefighters, all equipment, our fire college, also responsible for all arson investigation in the state of Florida. And I'm also the head mortician for the state of Florida. So, yeah, someone missed a meeting. It's an important role that the dignity of life and how all life is treated, and so even in passing. So it's an additional role that we own as well, with all funeral homes and cemeteries across the state, serving them in their capacity to serve the people of Florida. So that's the portfolio. Just before getting into some comments, my life's work has been banking. I left college and immediately went to an organization known as Barnett Bank. Many of you maybe remember Barnett Bank, and they were very good to me. They sent me all over the state, Jacksonville to Ocala, back to Jacksonville, to Palm Beach, to Broward, to Vero Beach, back to Palm Beach. And all that time, I had a chance to grow up in that company as a business development officer, knocking on doors, calling on individuals, until concluding when we were sold to Nations Bank in 1997-98. I would complete my role there as CEO of the Barnett Bank of Broward County, which was about a $3.5 billion bank at the time. The point of all that, every day, no matter where I was along those 25 years with that company, every week I wanted to go on a call. Every week I wanted to go out and see if I could help win business. Every week I wanted to go out and see if I could save business. The point would be, every single week I was out calling on someone to see if our institution could add value to the risk they took, the chance they took to build something very special. And that was the best job in all the world. So I know in this room there are people who have chosen something, whether it is their construction, whether or not it is a wonderful service, whether or not it's providing health care. You love it and you're passionate about it. I had the good fortune, as some of the others in this room who are community bankers, to call on you, to learn the story, to understand the sacrifice. Let me say, to try to appreciate the sacrifice and the courage and the perseverance it took to build it. So now having the chance to be your CFO, to filter through the questions of the day and the policy of the day, all those things, when I see them, will that idea be good for the state of Florida in the attraction of capital, the deployment of capital, the efficiency of capital? Will this be a good idea that the marketplace can build upon this, to test their skills, to offer their wares, and to offer something of value to the community? If not, not interested. That's how I have a chance now, because of all of those who trained me, like yourselves, to do this job today. Let me say some things about where we're at. I want to make clear at the beginning, I wouldn't trade places with anybody in any other state. We have our challenges, and I'm going to share some of them with you, but I wouldn't trade places with anybody in any other state. So I want to be sure when we get to the end, you've heard that first, okay? Now let's walk through a quick history. In 2006, the state's top-line revenue was $28 billion. And I want to be clear on this again. You create top-line revenue, and you compete for that. You offer a product or a service for that. You put everything on the line for that, and the marketplace will decide whether or not it comes to your door. That's your top-line revenue. The state's top-line revenue We don't compete for it. We don't fight for it. We just take it out of your pocket. It's called a tax. $28 billion in the present tax system, corporate taxes, dock stamp, sales tax, came to the state of Florida in 2006. 2009, it was $21 billion. So we saw almost a third of state revenue evaporate in 24 to 36 months. Now, many people were saying to us, how do you fill the hole? How do you fill the gap? What are you going to do to get it back to $28 billion? I said, we're not. The marketplace just told us it can't buy a washer. It can't buy a car. It can't yet buy the house. If we decide we're going to extract another $7 billion out of the marketplace, where do you think this thing's going to go? No. Let us do what they're all doing. Let us evaluate everything we're doing and reduce the cost of government and get back down to where the present load can be carried by the marketplace. Let them keep the money in their pocket. They'll keep somebody else on staff. They'll buy the next piece of equipment. They'll start the next home. And that was the decision Florida made over the last 5 years. And I would call it, maybe it's the Pat Neal theory, it's the Jim Boyd theory, and I think it was right, and I'm going to get to this for you. So we reduced that spending. We actually reduced the size of your state government, not the growth rate of your state government. We are smaller today than we were. In 2006, the average price of a home trading hands in Florida was $258,000. Last month it was $151,000. And believe it or not, we're on the way up. A year ago this month it was $129,000. It was over a 53% drop in the price point of a home trading hands in Florida over that period of time. So again, what would be that you would ask of us, those you've been given this privilege? What can we possibly do to keep money in the hands of the marketplace so that as they are ready, as soon as they are ready, they will make the choice to buy again, to start building again, to take that absorption out of the marketplace? So we went from 258 to 129 as the low, and now we're on our way back up. And you're experiencing that here. And in the time that Craig gave me before we came in today, taking me for a brief tour around our beautiful community here, is your price points are actually coming back faster than the state average. And that is an obvious bit of appreciation I should extend as one individual for the thoughtfulness and the care and how you have managed things locally to accomplish that. Here's the choice, though. There have been two very different paths. During that same period of time, and if this sounds political, it's not meant to. It should just sound philosophical. And everybody in Washington is to blame. So I'm not picking sides. And I'll make that clear as well. But that's the path we chose. To reduce corporate taxes, to reduce property taxes, to eliminate the intangibles tax, and keep money in the hands of hardworking Floridians. That was our choice. Our choice has been to reduce the spending, reduce the size of your state government, and to reduce the state debt, which has just never been done before, to actually reduce the state debt by $500 million. The other path was to increase spending, increase debt, increase taxes. Florida, in that period of time that I just spoke of, had the highest foreclosure rate in the country, second only to Nevada. In fact, this very moment, there are 300,000 homes still in foreclosure in Florida, 23,000 new ones in the month of July. So we're still challenged. That's still going on. So we have about 14% of our homes in foreclosure and about 7% of our homes in foreclosure and about 14% in delinquency ratio. You put that together and you got about 21% of all homes that are either severely past due in their mortgage or in foreclosure. That's where we're at in Florida. And that is highest in the nation. That is our struggle still. But a year ago, we had 10.5 months supply of homes on the market. Today, we have 5.8 months of homes on the market. We are making our way through this. Every decision at our fingertips, the levers that we can move for you, is thinking about can the marketplace, if we can keep that money in the marketplace, it will work and it will deploy it most wisely for all Floridians. So the other choice was what happened in Washington. Over the same period of time, increased spending, increased taxes, increased debt. Now, this is what I would want you to again, and I want to give credit to Jim Boyd and the tough decisions he's been making for us. Last year, a week ago, the S&P downgraded our country for the first time in our history, questioning whether or not we even had the political will to do what we had to do to save ourselves, and given the financial situation that we were in. The same week the S&P downgraded the country, it upgraded the outlook for the state hit the hardest. That's not an accident. That is leadership, and that's hard work, and that's the kind of thing, Jim Boyd, you've done, and I'm grateful for it. You've done a great job. Now, I want to express a far greater worry because, as I said, this is not a political statement. I want to take you back to 1969. And by my angle of the room, looking around, most of you were there. Okay. I'm not talking about the dark ages. 1969, 28% of our federal budget was entitlements. Today, 66%. 66% of the entire federal budget is our country sending a check to someone. In 1969, the federal government's participation of our GDP was 18%. Today, it's 24%. One out of every $4 in the economic activity of our country is now passing through the federal government. In 1969, you had 12% of the American people of working age not paying federal income taxes. Today, 47%. So, and this may be the one that's most staggering, although that is pretty staggering. In 1969, the debt to GDP ratio in America was 38%. And now, as you know, we can't even calculate it. But it's north of 120, and if you add in Medicare and Social Security, it's probably not even calculable. So what's happened since 1969? Think of our presidents, think of our Congresses, think of our Senates. It's up to us, all right? I mean, I know what's going on, and I know what's going to go on for the next 60 days, and I have my pick, and I have my preference. But you cannot, no matter what Jim Boyd did, no matter the path that Pat Neal put us on, we can't overcome that. No matter how fine-tuned we get here in Manatee and Sarasota counties, we can't overcome that. And yet we have a national debate going on right now that we're supposed to be taking seriously about the Buffett rule because the highest earners aren't paying enough. The top 1% pay 38% of the entire federal income tax of the country right now. The Buffett rule would bring in $5.8 billion. It could run the country for 11 hours. That's not the answer until we decide who we really are and we're willing to fight for it. We're going to get this. And I cannot imagine anybody sitting this one out. So again, whoever you're for, whoever you're pulling for, pull for America. Pull for the Constitution. Every one of our founders told us. Jefferson said, I mean, they asked him, what's his greatest worry? He said, the greatest challenge to this new country will be public debt. And there wasn't any. Washington would say, the greatest harm we could do to our posterity is to leave them the expenses that we should have covered ourselves. Madison, in Federalist 45, the federal government is supposed to be this big, limited and few, power to the states. So I haven't forgotten my job. You give me the good fortune to look over that $70 billion. And one of the things that I appreciate was mentioned in the intro. Of that $70 billion, 60% of that is deployed in the form of a contract. That's not a highway patrol officer, it's not a teacher. It's our deciding to have someone build a road, someone to provide mental health services, someone to provide food to a prison. Whatever it is, 60% of your entire budget is the form of a contract. And I'm looking at these, and you would be saddened by what you see. So my goal, and what I've asked the legislature, is let me image every one of these and put them online. The marketplace will sharpen its pencil, and they'll come and fight for this business. It shouldn't go to the same Tom, Dick, and Harry that have had it for 30 years. Let's have somebody get to work. So we won't forget here what we can do for you. We will keep going after the cost drivers and getting your auto insurance rates down by getting the fraud out of the system. We'll keep going after the fraud in the workers' comp system so that somebody has got to a job site, has real coverage at the right price, and the honest contractor can afford to build it into their bid, and they're competing with everybody who is actually doing the honest thing as well. And we'll fight for that. And we just had a great bust in Southeast Florida, which I know doesn't surprise you. It's a target-rich environment. I just remembered we're videotaping this. Which has extraordinarily fine qualities as a community. And one of which I'm committed to working with them to get that fraud out. So we won't forget our job. And the legislator's not going to forget theirs. When people, this is just the last comment, people will speak to those of us who have the privilege of serving you. And they may walk up to us, depending on maybe our track record. And in our case, they'll say, I want to thank you for having been good to business. And my response is, I understand the point that you're making, and I appreciate that, and I know it was sincere. But my job is to create the environment where the consumers of this state will have choice and opportunity. People will fight to create innovative products. They will lower price to win their business. And if that's good for business, I'm happy with that. But the people of Florida, the 19 people of Florida, to deserve a marketplace where people come and take a chance and take a risk and put everything on the line. And if we can do that, then we've done right by the 19 million people. You'll do right by how you serve them. Thank you very much. Could I answer some questions for you today? Oh, I forgot.
Just real quick.
Yeah, sure.
I do want.
Sure.
Just to let everybody know, we are filming today, so we don't have a microphone to go around. So what we'd like to do is when you ask your question, we're going to repeat the question so that it can be on film. So just bear with us on that.
The question was, do we have any cities in Florida that are considering bankruptcy in Florida? That's a very good question, and I think the potential exists. I do not have, at this date, a watch list that we are considering. But I think it's very, very real. The burdens that many of these municipalities in particular have placed upon themselves and obligations they have placed upon themselves, that there are some out there that are going to probably make some changes. But we don't have a watch list. But it's real. It's very real. The question was that I had served such an outstanding way as Kevin, Senator. Actually, yeah, stop right there, yeah. Actually, before you all had the benefit of Kevin coming to your community, we had the good fortune of him serving us in Southeast Florida. The question was that the Affordable Care Act would be the expectation that dollars would flow to Florida to begin to pick up some of the additional costs that would be involved in the expansion of the Medicaid services that would be taking place, and the decision made in Florida, at least by our governor's, the decision making at this point is that we would not be participating in some of those expansions. So, where does that leave us? I think it's I think it's a little unknown, but I want to make a point in this and try to answer this the best I can. I mentioned that revenue fell from 28 billion to 21 billion. We are now back up to about just over 23.5 billion. So from those last 2 years, we've been growing, almost, 700, 800 million a year coming back. And this coming year, we're actually projecting about $1 billion in additional revenue coming to the state, somewhere coming in around $24.5 billion. That's a long way from 28 billion, and frankly, it's even longer than the math. It's a long way from 28 billion. But that entire $1 billion will be going to pay for the growing roles of Medicaid in the absence of us expanding Medicaid under the Affordable Care Act. That's how fast this continues to grow. So, which means that Representative Boyd and others will be right back in the same mode of how else do we make this work. The governor's calculus on this, and by the way, I feel the incredibly difficult decisions that he is making are clearly for what I believe are in the best interest of Florida, in reducing expenses and driving down costs and keeping money in the marketplace and getting real effectiveness for what we're talking about doing. But the calculus that I would suggest that he's looking at is, if we go into this $70 billion state budget, $22 billion of it is for Medicaid. One line item is $22 billion of the entire state budget. After that, you then think about roads and the criminal justice system and general government and education and everything else. This is the biggest item in the state budget, and it's growing faster than any growth rate, any other economic indicator that we have. So the calculus that he is making is, if we embrace the Affordable Care Act's expansion, which would take us from probably 3 million present recipients in Florida on Medicaid to possibly 4.5 to 5 million, this would put us somewhere, that line item would have to go from 22 billion to somewhere like 30 or 35 billion in the next 3 to 4 years. And the federal government is telling us at the minute, well, don't worry, we'll pick up most of the tab. The present tab is almost a 50-50 split. What they're suggesting to us, as you know, is 90-10. I think we've all been around the block. That 90-10 is going to go to 80-20, is going to go to 70-30, is going to go to 60-40, and we will bury the people of Florida in trying to cover that cost. And I don't, let me say to you, because I want to say this, I've known Kevin a long time, and I've said this to you in your office over on the East Coast. The present system we have is not sustainable. We can't keep driving down reimbursement rates in Medicaid and expect that quality people are going to show up in an emergency room to take care of you in the middle of the night, or somebody else in the middle of the night that may be the Medicaid recipient. This isn't even covering any longer the cost. We have shifted everything, and the few, and maybe most of you in this room, are paying the burden for the other, and the shift that's gone on. So the answer isn't continuing to drive down the reimbursement rate, but I don't think anybody, I don't believe, that's saying, well, let's throw a tremendously big net and catch everybody, and then somehow think the market dynamics will ever be able to carry that. So I think at the moment, the unknown is, let us see, if we're not expanding our cost of taking on an expanded Affordable Care Act, then hopefully the cost is not going to be placed upon your burden, because that's going to have to be met in some other way. The private marketplace has to continue to find its answers and solutions. It's not, it's going to be a very difficult path. Yeah, let me try. The question was, if there's conversation going on that those who are advocates for the hospital associations and the hospital networks in Florida may be having conversation about eliminating certificate of needs, how might that impact the present provider system in its ability to serve? Well, that conversation's been going on, a long time, but not so much by those being the advocates or the drivers of the conversation. There are, as you all know, if you may not know in Florida law, that you just cannot go and place a new hospital up and compete next door. That your government would have to see, is there a real need for that kind of investment and that kind of infrastructure, and what does that do to the entire marketplace? I am well aware of hospitals that are providing an extraordinarily significant portion of their care to indigent care. And as new players in a perfect marketplace dynamic, you compete. You say, hey, let the winner be decided by the choice it's made. Presently, we have systems in place, though, that if new players were to arrive tomorrow and set up shop next door under a new concept, they would probably be extracting revenue that would make the others maybe not survive. And again, I won't go. I don't have a list, and I don't have a set of names here. But I think that anything that I believe in the purity of that process, and I believe that. I believe in the marketplace and the free market dynamics of that, but a hospital is a significant community asset with a significant investment, and if you were to move away from the present system, I think you would have to have some kind of incremental process to accomplish that goal. And everyone in that community would still need to absorb the cost drivers that are burdened on a few of those hospitals and figure out how to do that so that uniquely wasn't left on the traditional players who are providing that charitable service. Then you're somehow or another you're going to have to have that source of funds to do that. Citizens Property Insurance, the insurer of last resort, is now the largest property carrier in the state, and so there has to be a way now for us. This has grown by bad policy making and by allowing fraud to exist in the present system. And the point would be that in 1998, there were 460,000 homes in the predecessor to Citizens along what we call the coastal high-risk areas. Today in Citizens, there are now 1.4 million homes and properties in this system, but there are still only 462,000 in that high coastal account. This has gone from a coastal account of high risk that was spread to everyone to now completely across the state from bad policy and from fraud, sinkhole fraud, that drove companies out of the Tampa Bay communities that you would know better than anybody, and particularly north of here, in Pasco, Hernando counties. So I think certainly Rick Scott has made it abundantly clear. There are legislators who have made this abundantly clear, and I think everybody is probably in the most rational place that I've observed in the last 4 or 5 years in Tallahassee, that if we must allow the marketplace to work. The risk that we are placing on taxpayers, which I bet most of you in this room have no idea the assessment you will get if Isaac, which it won't do, had rolled in the Tampa Bay at high tide as a Category 3 or better. Everybody in this room would be getting a bill, and so would the people in Pensacola, and so would the people in Jacksonville. And so the goal must be, and I think we have started down this path, that the citizens' rates could no longer be suppressed to the marketplace. And that path is going to take a couple of years to accomplish that. But to lay this risk back to those who are the professionals and let them spread that risk across the globe, and let people compete again, in Florida, believing their business model can work in Florida. The concern would be that there is no calculus that can be rationally argued at this moment that sees in any near term that rates would be lower than where they're at today. And that's the greatest painful concern of this process. The marketplace will not take these homes out of Citizens at present rates. They do not believe their business model can work at those rates, so they won't take them. So that's the challenge. And so living in the present situation with about $500 billion worth of risk in the Citizens portfolio, how will we fund those claims, which will not be that significant on any given event or in any given season, but could be upwards to the Citizens $30–40 billion in claims in a given season. And that's where we would begin to finance that in a tax to every Floridian. And I don't think anyone ever thought when this started that we would have created the largest property insurance company in the state. That's not our core competency, and the marketplace would be far better to handle that. So I appreciate the point. Yeah. The question was, in contracting, are we still creating the scheme in our state laws that are requiring certain preferences to who could receive those contracts, and the inclusion of contracts to certain vendors? If that's well, I want to make. Let me make this clear. I'm not in charge of contracts. I've just inserted myself into contracts because we are wasting your money. Absolutely. And my name is on every check. Every agency, all 33 agencies, have the responsibility in state law to negotiate and sign their contract. But I'm the one who signs the check, and so I'm bringing people in and saying, now all I'm going to end up is in a lawsuit if I don't sign the check. But I can tell them next time. I hope we will talk about this in the courtyard, in public, if I ever see this again. And it's your money, and so I don't want to see it again. It will be there are things in state law that still will ask vendors to identify how they will go about developing their support network and providing the ultimate work, and those things do still exist in state law. And so that would be a matter, for our legislature to look at and evaluate each of those. What I want in each contract is, what's the deliverable, what's the performance measure, what's the financial consequences if it's not done on time, and who's going to jail. And I don't think that should be unreasonable. I can't imagine any one of you signing a contract. I'm looking at things that literally just say, quarterly, send me the invoice for providing certain services in this state. No documentation. I couldn't tell you whether anything was done with that money.
Well, if
Yeah.
you were saying you were put them all online, I mean, that would give the competitor.
That's right.
My bid was much less.
Right.
And that would maybe.
That's what, and that's exactly right. And I want people to know what's coming up for renewal, so that they're not having to try to guess when. But this is expiring. I do that. You'll be able to plug in by type of work, by vendor, by amount, by agency. Everything, I've already put all of mine online, so everyone can take a look at mine. Last thing, can I do this? Yes. I know this is a commercial. On September 6th and 7th, and here again is what I recognize, that I'm in the presence of people that don't get to take a day off, that you're the only ones unlocking the shop door. But we have put together a forum in Tampa, September 6th and 7th, where I'm bringing in people to speak to the present economic conditions of our state, to speak to the access to capital, to speak to brand management, government procurement, to speak to matters of social media that may be of value, for 24 hours, from noon Thursday to noon Friday. And for me and others in my department to listen to the challenges that you're facing, to the burdens you're carrying, to the regulations that make no sense, and let me listen and see if I can't go back and do something about them. So if it'll be on the table as you leave. We can sign up at the very last hour. You don't need to sign up in advance, but if you'd like to, we'd love to know if you would like to come, and I'd get the benefit of your feedback. Thank you all very much. Thank you for letting me be here. Thanks.
All right, just really briefly here, I would like to bring up Mary Slapp, Executive Director for the Gulf Coast Builders Exchange, to give us our closing comments. Mary.
Thank you, Craig. I was obviously the shortest speaker to come up here today. I have the privilege of thanking our speaker, CFO Atwater, not only for his being here with us today, but his service in the Florida Senate, his service as our Chief Financial Officer, and your commitment to public service. It's obvious that you have not forgotten your job. It is obvious that you are a very good steward of our taxpayer dollars. Thank you for saving us over $5 million refinancing our debt, and knowing that you are the steward of our taxpayer dollars, I think has given everybody in this room today a much better feeling about what's going on in Tallahassee. So if we could have another round of applause for CFO Atwater. It's hard for me not to say President Atwater. In addition, I'd like to thank our sister, brother business organizations, the home builders, the groups that have come together here to put on this event, also the Lakewood Ranch Business Alliance, the Manatee Chamber of Commerce, and the Sarasota Chamber of Commerce. This was a very good partnership for this event, and we look forward at the Builders Exchange, as I'm sure all of you do, to doing this at least on an annual basis. In addition, I'd also like to thank our sponsors today, Kaiser University and Mosaic Company. They helped make today possible. So again, if we could have a round of applause for our sponsors. And last but never least, for service to the community, Charles Clapsaddle and his crew at METV. They provide a wonderful service, and through their being here today, other members in the community who could not be here will be able to see it on METV. So thank you for that. Everybody have a wonderful day.